There's a lot of leaders listening right now who probably have, resolutions in all areas of life, things they want to approach this year.
Yeah.
But they have a lot of problems they need to solve and a lot of things to juggle. So I want to walk through this framework that you've developed to help kind of figure out what the problems are, find the right solutions, and move forward.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it is important that we have these frameworks that we work in because it might just be, well, number one, you're probably going to miss a lot of opportunities if you don't know what to look for. And then number two, you won't have a method for solving those problems. And then number three, you won't actually know if what you implemented is working. So I work best in frameworks. And yeah, we can explore and talk about all these little side conversations and things. But for the most part, like keeping it within a framework is really helpful for me. So I imagine it's the same for other people.
To have that filter, that your brain can go, all right, I can burn less brain calories and walk through this process that can help me get to the result I need.
Yeah, because I think a lot of people seem to believe that action is prudent. So they'll run around, scurry around, do everything, try to fix everything themselves and think, well, I was busy, I must have been productive. No, you were just busy, but did you actually move the needle? I don't know. Well, we need to know that, right? And so that's what frameworks help us do. So the first part is that what you want to get into? The first part?
Let's do it.
Yeah, I mean, the first is just to look to identify problems. Some of those are going to be low-hanging fruit. And what I would suggest that you do is just start writing these things down. And you don't have to be in a leadership position to do this. Okay, so if you recognize and acknowledge that there's problems in your home or problems in your work environment, just start documenting those things. One trap I would say is don't list them all and then give them to your boss or your man and say, here's all the problems that I've identified. That's not going to serve you well. This is for you. Okay, this is what you need to deal with. There might be one or two problems in there that you acknowledge that, hey, if we fix this, this will make everything else better. And I've noticed that. There's some problems that will just wipe out a lot of other issues that are taking place. And if you're going to present this problem, you better have a solution to it as well. If you're going to go to an employer or a boss or a team leader to be able to have a solution to this as well, at least something to propose. Because what I see is when somebody comes to with a problem, whether it's my kids or somebody at work, great, you just signed on to fix that problem. And if you already have a plan in place, I think your leaders are going to see that and be excited that you're around because that's what they're looking for as well.
Yeah, that's a different conversation and a different posture to take when you say, hey, I've noticed all these problems. I've got some ideas on how we could solve it. I'd love your help. Every leader is happy to hear that.
Well, and here's the thing. Solving problems, or at least acknowledging they exist, sometimes has a tendency of making life harder for people, right? Because a lot of the times, even in organizations, they take those problems and everybody knows they exist. Like everybody knows you're not hiding them, but people sweep them under the rug a little bit and hopefully they'll just go away and dissipate. Eventually they don't, the rug gets taller and taller. So there's a reason that hasn't been addressed yet. And the reason might be something that you're not aware of. So don't fall into that trap. Or it might just be because the solution hasn't been proposed or they don't have the resources, whether it's the financial capital or even the manpower to be able to deal with it. So your job when you're solving problems is not to make life harder on everybody else who already knows the problem exists. It's to make it easier. And if you can grease that groove, you're going to be looked at as a leader.
Yeah. So as you look around, you're finding all these problems, which most leaders don't have a hard time with. How do you know which ones are worth solving? Because some of them may, not my monkey, not my circus. Do I have to decide what we're going to do for the team lunch and what kind of paper thickness we need for the printer? There's a certain level where the leader needs to go, all right, I need to figure this out, but I need to delegate it.
Yeah, you got to look at your objectives first, right? So if your objective is to give everybody lunch, like it really doesn't matter if you bring in turkey sandwiches or ham sandwiches. Like lunch is lunch. Do half of each and you're good, right? But we do get caught up on that stuff. But you got to have a purpose for your organization or your family. I use them interchangeably because we work them very much the same way. But there's got to be a purpose. But if you haven't thought about, okay, what are the most important things that I can get done within an organization or your family, you're never going to be able to judge potential problems and solutions against. So if we're looking at my business, for example, my number one priority is to get interesting, fascinating guests on our podcast. That's it. That's the single most important thing I can do. And then it's to take that information and then present it to the public who can be served by it. So there's other problems that creates, like, well, what if the video's not good? What if the audio's not good? What if this is not good? Well, the first thing is to get a good guest. And so I've brought on somebody who's been very, very helpful, Brandy, to help me secure podcast guests, because I recognize that although that wasn't a problem, I wanted to elevate that and have help in that department. Now that that's checked off the list and that's covered, I can start looking at some of these ancillary problems that are created because of it.
So it helps you focus on different issues, more important issues, strategic opportunities that you might have in the future.
That's right.
That's good.
And the other thing you have to consider is, with the problems that you're identifying and recognizing, are you the best person to solve those problems? Because as a leader, maybe it's a bit of narcissism, maybe it's a bit of ego, maybe it's just a bit of intense care for the project that you don't want to let it go. And what I've found is that, I'll take my podcast, for example. Not only do I not want to edit my podcast, I am not as good as having an editor for my podcast. And my sole purpose is to put good information out into the world and fascinating conversations. Then that means I need to bring somebody else in to do this who can do it better than me. And it does something else. It frees up our time to focus on what we are uniquely qualified to do. So I might have and I do have a great podcast editor, but he's not going to be as good as me when it comes to doing the podcast. So I got to free up time for him to do that, free up time for me to do my thing, and we're both better served because of it. And the people who listen are better served as well.
Yeah, and that takes a level of humility to kind of let go and go, all right, I can't do it all. I don't want to do it all. Here's what I'm really good at. I'm going to find other people and set up that team around me to make this successful.
Yeah, I mean, humility is definitely part of it, but I would say there's another part of it. You have to care so much about the product or whatever you're putting into the world that you'll do whatever it takes to make it effective. So yeah, if humility serves you and that's how you choose to look at it, great. Me, I choose to look at it and say, hey, I really want my audience to be served by this, and therefore I'm going to do these things to ensure they get the best quality product.